You're watching Gearz.
Watching Gearz.
You know, 30 years ago, in 1977, a movie came out that just absolutely blew everybody's mind. It was called Star Wars, and people just went crazy for it. The problem is, if you were a car guy, Star Wars didn't really have much to offer you. Matter of fact, in 1977, there wasn't a lot to offer anywhere. People were listening to disco, and they were wearing polyester clothing, and the cars, oh, slow and ugly. Then, in the late summer of '77, another movie came out, and he knocked Star Wars off the top of the heap. Now, this was basically a modern-day Western with a good-hearted bandit running from the law. But he didn't ride a horse. No, he drove a car, a Trans Am to be exact, and it was black. And in '77, you either had this car or you wished you did, because it changed popular culture as we know it.
Honey, hush.
This movie introduced people to modern country music and Southern culture. It started the CB craze. It had people walking around saying things like "son" and "Cletus." And it had some of the best car stunts ever put on film. Yeah, the movie was called Smokey and the Bandit.
Good, didn't you, Fred?
Smokey and the Bandit was a hoot.
I'm the brother of a truck driving mother. Boogity, 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 boogity.
It was a party.
Daddy, the top came on. No.
Jackie Gleason was just eating them alive.
Do you know who you're talking to? The sheriff. Do for justice.
Let me have a Diablo sandwich, a Dr. Pepper. Make it fast. I'm gonna hurry.
Hey, boy. Boy.
It was a cartoon.
Look over that way. The evidence in the car.
Bank robbing is big alongside of what this dude is doing.
As soon as I get home, the first thing I'm gonna do is punch your mama in the mouth.
How's that for hijinks?
We're having fun yet.
Now, it goes without saying that Smokey had some incredible actors in it. Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed and Jackie Gleason and Sally Field. But every gearhead knows that the real star of the movie was the black Trans Am, because it did things that no normal car should be able to do.
So I called Pontiac and made a deal with them. They gave me 3 Trans Ams and 2 Bonnevilles for the sheriff. Believe me, when we got through, we were stealing parts off of this and this and this to make the last one run. I mean, we just barely got through.
And all we did was go out and wreck cars. That's all we did, was went out and wrecked a bunch of cars. Every time that Trans Am did a stunt, they had to pack it off and bring in another Trans Am. Because it'd bend the frame, you know, and tear it up.
So why was it so popular? What was it about this movie that made it have such a huge impact on our popular culture? Well, the muscle car era was long gone. And anyone with a passion for cars was kind of looked down on. Matter of fact, every time you turned on the news, there was another oil embargo or a fuel shortage or some crooked politician doing something.
People have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Yeah, no question. We had forgotten how to have fun. And then along comes this black Trans Am, all these crazy characters.
This here's the grave robber.
The good witch of the north, Foxy lady.
Silver-tongued devil.
This is Sheriff George Branford.
This is Little Beaver.
You got the one snowman arm, eastbound and down.
And all of a sudden, we're all laughing again.
I think think I just went 10-100.
And that's nothing but pure and simple old-fashioned communism.
Now, in spite of what you remember from the movie, the late 70s Trans Ams were not that fast, with a 400 cubic inch motor and around 220 horsepower. But for a production car in the late 70s, that was about as good as you could get. And that's what made the timing for Smokey and the Bandit so perfect. Not only was the front nose new for 77, but also the black and gold paint scheme was new for a production Trans Am. Of course, the car carried all the typical markings of 70s automotive excess, like wheel flares and T-tops and a CB radio, and of course that big bird on the hood. Of course now, 30 years later, the big question is, what happened to the car from the movie? Well, according to director Hal Needham, there were 3 cars used in the movie, and they were all destroyed during filming. Matter of fact, one of them was totaled during the bridge jump. That's why you never see the landing very well.
The jump across the bridge. Wipe that one off, it's gone. All we just scavenged parts off of that thing. And time we got to the last shot, we barely had a car running.
But the good news is there are thousands of these old Trans Ams out there waiting for you to make a project out of it. And they're still affordable. So if you want one, you can get one. Now, of course, if you want one of these cars that will actually do what the car in the movie did, that's going to take a special Trans Am. And that's what we're going to look at next. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where today we are recognizing the 30th anniversary of one of the most influential cars and car movies of all time, Smokey and the Bandit, and the black and gold Trans Am. Now, we've already walked you through the cultural impact that this car and that movie had on everybody back in '77. But what about today? I mean, what if you could take a classic Trans Am and bring it up to today's standards, you know, to where it would run with Corvettes and Vipers? What would that car be like? Well, the guys at YearOne have done just that in what they call the Burt Reynolds edition Bandit Trans Am. And what we've got here is the very first Bandit 3. Now, YearOne said that we could take you for a spin in it as long as we promise to treat it with loving care and not scratch it. And that is what this is for. Yeah, I love these black cars.
Better invest in some touch-up paint.
The YearOne Burt Reynolds Trans Am, at first glance, may look like a stock '77 Trans Am, but that's the whole point. It's supposed to have all the look and the attitude of the original Bandit car without revealing how nasty this car really is under the skin. From a styling standpoint, the changes are subtle but significant. The front and back glass are all flush mounted for a more contemporary look. The nose houses modern projector beam lights without losing the original feel of the car. The wheel flares are redesigned for a better fit, and the wheels are a modern 18-inch billet interpretation of the original Snowflake design. Now, those wheels are wrapped in 10-inch wide rubber at the front and huge 12-inch rubber in the rear. That'll help this thing hold the road around corners and when you stomp the gas, which is going to be a challenge for this car. The proper Bandit launch is about 3,000 to 4,000 on the RPM. See there? See where we're sitting? Got your clutch down here, and you got your shifter, and you... Oh, yeah! That's right out of the Bandit book of illegal launches. Now, when YearOne decided to build a car to this level, well, they knew it would have to handle. And not just well, no, it'd have to be up to the standards of the hottest performance cars on the road today. So the suspension was stuffed with tubular subframe and control arms, rack and pinion steering, subframe connectors, performance shocks, a 4-link in the rear. Yeah, all the good stuff. So does it work? Yeah, this thing handles better than any second-generation Firebird you'll ever see. And with huge calipers and rotors front and rear, she'll stop in a hurry too. I need another Sharpie. Did you bring a spare? Of course, the big question is the engine. What is it? That's a 600 horse LS7 that just gets up and screams when you lay into it. Now behind that is a Tremec TKO 5-speed. That's just a pleasure to drive when you start busting through the gears. Then there's the hood scoop. Now obviously it's functional, and when you stomp the pedal and you see that scoop rock sideways, man, it's something every gearhead should experience. Is this cool or what? But all that burning rubber and flying gravel does come at a cost to YearOne. The interior, all business, with special black and gold leather seats holding you in place. The dash has all been reworked with modern gauges, and of course the console and the door panels hold the pedigree that so many people are after. Now, one thing that you won't see on most supercars is a roll cage that's so nicely blended into the interior that it's very easy to overlook. Once again, that's the purpose here, to give you all the performance and safety of a modern supercar and still retain the look, the feel, and the attitude of the original legendary car. Well, there it is, the Burt Reynolds edition Bandit Trans Am from YearOne. Now, obviously, this is not a cheap car, but obviously, it is not your average car either. No, this is a supercar in every sense of the word. And if you're lucky enough to buy one of these, your biggest concern is not going to be somebody outrunning you. Oh, no. Your biggest concern is going to be keeping enough Sharpies on hand to hide the evidence.
Got the evidence in the car.
Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals since 1919.
You know, whenever a bunch of gearheads get together, eventually the subject of tools comes up. And one tool I've been getting a lot of questions about is the English wheel. And people have seen them on TV, they know they exist, but unless you're a serious metal worker, most people have no idea what this thing does or how it does it. And that's because the English wheel has always been a very specialized tool. And finding one in a shop and somebody who knew how to use it was like finding a Hemi Cuda, man. It just didn't happen. Well, things have changed because now people want to make their own fenders, they want to make their own body panels, they want to do their own metal work. And that is where an English wheel comes in. But before you can make the choice if this is something for your shop, well, you got to understand how it works. That's what we're going to look at today. All right, basically what an English wheel does is it stretches metal to create compound curves, which means, of course, the metal not only bends one direction, it also goes the other. Now, it does that by rolling the metal between two metal rollers. Now, your top roller is flat, and then your bottom roller, or anvil, has got a radius to it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Now, this lever here is basically a quick release, so you can get the metal out when you're done with it. And then, of course, this down here is an adjustment for the tension that you're going to have on the metal. Now, everything else that you see here has absolutely nothing to do with the use of an English wheel. It's just really cool. This is your usable part of the wheel, and this is how to use it. If you're shaping a piece from scratch, it's best to start with a lower wheel that has less radius, then slowly work up to a more pronounced radius as you shape the piece. This will keep the contour more uniform and controllable as you form the metal. Once that's decided, grab a piece of metal and roll it into the wheel. All right, once you have the metal in the machine, what do? Well, obviously you want to roll it back and forth across the rollers, but the metal also needs to go this direction, and that presents a problem. Because look at this. You can shove on this thing all you want, that metal's not going anywhere because it's pinched between two rollers. So basically you need to use a tracking pattern to move the metal to the side as you're also rolling it back and forth. Now that tracking pattern is basically going to look like a big W. You go straight, angle, straight, angle, straight, angle, and that will move the metal to the side. Now wait a minute, come back here for a second. Now, this gap is pretty big here. I did that just so you can see the tracking pattern. When you do this for real, you're going to want your tracking pattern to be very tight so you get a nice, smooth, even curve. Now that's it in theory. Here's how to actually do it. What you want to do is roll the metal straight, then push it just a little bit, roll it, straighten it, roll it, angle it, roll it, straighten it, roll it, and that's basically your pattern to work your way across the metal. Then when you get to the end, just reverse it. After you've made a few passes, it's a good idea to stop and rotate the panel 90 degrees, and then continue making more passes. This will help keep the panel even and uniform as it shapes. You're going to find that an English wheel will shape metal very quickly. So it's important that you pay close attention to the panel as you shape it so you don't overdo it. To get more curve, all you have to do is change the lower anvil to one to a steeper radius and then keep wheeling the same way. Now, as the panel curves and thins, you're going to have to adjust the tension wheel to keep everything forming evenly. And just like the tracking patterns, this is something you have to develop a feel for, since the type of metal that you're using and its thickness are all factors that are going to affect how quickly and how much the metal moves. All right, a couple of tips here when you're wheeling. First of all, don't get in a hurry. You got to take your time, you got to let the wheel do the work. Basically, you just guide it through as you create the shape that you're after. The wheel does the shaping. Also, you want to make sure that you don't put too much tension on the bottom. If you do that, you can create some grooves here in the metal that'll have to be wheeled back out. And then finally, make sure you do not get a finger caught between the wheels. You do that, you'll be surprised the vocabulary you'll come up with. And in just a few minutes, here's what you've got. A nicely formed panel. Now take a look at this. This could be a patch panel. This could be the start of a hood scoop or a fender or, man, whatever. Now, some of you guys might be looking at this going, well, you know, that's cool, but it looks to me like an English wheel is just for hand-making panels, right? Oh, man, they'll do a lot more than that. The next thing we're going to look at is how to use one to modify or repair an existing panel.
Tool Tech, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals since 1919.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where we are walking you through one of the coolest metalworking tools out there, the English wheel. Now, I've already gone through the basics on how to use one of these things. The big question now is, do you need one? Well, if you don't do any metalwork, no, man, you don't need an English wheel. But if you do a lot of metal fabrication, absolutely you have to have one. But what about you guys that just do a little bit of panel replacement or some body work? What about that? Well, you may want to look into one, because an English wheel is great for repairing or modifying existing panels. Take a look at this. When I was replacing the rockers on the Bushmaster, I found that the shape of the new rocker didn't match the original very well. So instead of cobbling it up with welds and gobs of body filler like somebody had done before, I just reshaped the rocker with a sandbag and mallet, and then finished off the final shape and contour with the English wheel. And in just a few minutes, you end up with a perfect fit. So you can see, having one of these things around and knowing how to use it can be a real benefit. Now, hopefully you guys are looking at this going, oh, man, that looks simple. I could do this. You can do this. But if you want to be a wheeler and you want to be good at it, well, first of all, you got to get yourself a wheel. Then you have got to practice. It's just like welding. It's just like painting. There is a skill involved here. There is a feel. There's a rhythm that you have got to develop, and you can only develop it by doing it. You cannot learn this out of a book. But trust me, if you're into custom metalwork, it is time well spent.
And now, what are you working on?
Now it's time for What Are You Working On? This is where we feature one of you guys right off the Gearz TV website. Now our subject today is Mike McFarland from St. George, Utah, and here he is with his project, a 56 Ford F100 that his wife Leslie found in a field in California in '91. Yeah, that was a great deal there, wasn't it, Mike? Yeah. Now, obviously, it didn't look like this when they got it. They've spent years working on this truck, starting with the engine, which is a new 351 Windsor. Check it out. It's got an automatic transmission. And then for the interior, they stuck in a mid-90s Chevy seat and then built the rest of the interior around that. And as you can see, they did a really good job with it. Now, obviously, Mike has spent a lot of time on this thing with the suspension, the motor, the body work. The cool thing is, he did all the work himself. So here he is, working on the truck in his natural habitat, showing us what he does best. Now, you would think that a truck that looks this good is a weekend driver, a trailer queen, right? No, man. Check this out. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is Mike using the truck as a real truck, pulling a rock out of his garden, man, with his classic Ford. That is classic, man. And that's what this is all about. So Mike, Leslie, great job. Now, if you've got a vehicle that you'd like to have featured here on the show, man, send it into GearzTV.com. We'll see if we can get it on the air. All right, you've seen what I'm working on. You know what Mike's working on. Now you, get out there, work on something. Come on, Domino, let's go.